and welcome back everybody. It's time for another What I Eat in a Week. So many simple yet tasty vegan meal ideas in this one. Plus, towards the end of the video, there's a quite special baking recipe that I'm really proud of. For breakfast, I had this cleansing, detoxing lime water with some cold leftover pizza from Stella Nera. It's a really good vegan Italian place in Neukölln. One half was topped with vegan cheese, roasted peppers, and smoked tofu, and the other one came with olives, artichokes, and garlic oil, I think. I also randomly had these small cooked potatoes lying around, so I cut those into slices and added that to my pizza as well. It was super good. Really satisfying. Are you the type of person that reheats their breakfast pizza, or do you just eat it cold? I definitely belong in the second group. A couple hours later, I had a quick blueberry shake. These are tiny cake molds filled with homemade coconut strawberry ice cream. You might recognize those from my song lyrics to desserts video. It was from the Deja Vu recipe. That went in there about a cup of frozen blueberries, tablespoon of vanilla protein powder, 2 tablespoons of oats, and about half a cup of water. It was a bit watery. I could have added less liquid for sure, but it was still, overall, pretty good tasting. For dinner, I made some salad. I chopped up some cucumber and some cherry tomatoes here, drained and rinsed a can of chickpeas, and toasted up a handful of pine nuts in a medium-sized skillet without any oil. The heat was on medium, and I just let them cook until they got a bit of color for about 4 minutes. The salad dressing was a classic vegan yogurt tahini mix, so I just combined some unsweetened soy yogurt, tahini, the runny, natural, not so bitter tasting kind that I got from my local Arabic food store, some white wine vinegar, curry powder, and fry seasoning. And then I added that to the chickpeas and veggies. Last but not least, I sprinkled over some of the toasted pine nuts and also some nutritional yeast, and served this with the remaining leftover pizza. Nina had brought these amazing banana chocolate oat flour brownies. I'm gonna ask her and see if I can put her recipe on the screen here. Alright, nice. Moving on to Tuesday. Here I am measuring out my small cut oats. I always go for half a cup per serving. I added those to my pot alongside some shredded coconut, a bit of salt, and unsweetened soy milk. I mix that all up, let everything come up to a boil, and then reduce the heat to medium, letting it simmer for about 6-7 minutes. I found this frozen orange pineapple mango mix at Penny. I added some of that and let it defrost for a while. Smoothed out the top here, added some more desiccated coconut, and finished everything off with a bit of maple syrup. A bit later, I had one of those white chocolate cookie dough protein bars. I went to the hairdresser that day for the first time in like a year. Anyway, when I got back, I was super hungry. Lunch was just me getting rid of leftovers. So I had the leftover chickpea salad and another slice of pizza that was still good. I also finished this cup of unsweetened soy yogurt with some dark chocolate pretzel granola. It's by the brand Hey Ho. It's not as sweet as I first imagined it to be, but it's still really good. I would give it a 7 out of 10. Dinner was roasted potatoes. While the oven was preheating to 200 degrees Celsius, I cut these guys into even smaller chunks. Added just a bit of olive oil to them, some nutritional yeast, salt, some everything bagel seasoning, and curry powder. I mixed that all up and then let this roast until golden brown and crispy. This took around 28 minutes for me. Definitely depends on how large you cut your potatoes and how much freedom they have on the baking sheet, but I'd say 25 to 35 minutes is a good vague guideline for roasting these. I ate all this with some chopped cucumber, some herby sunflower seed spread, and some oat-based sour cream. It's kinda crazy. On Wednesday morning, I felt like making pancakes. I tinkered with my basic original pancake recipe and was left with these super fluffy, protein, sort of, pancakes. I mixed together all the dry ingredients first: flour, vanilla protein powder, salt, coconut sugar, and baking powder. I set that aside and then combined all the wet ingredients in a separate bowl. So unsweetened soy milk, unsweetened applesauce, and natural runny peanut butter, and also a bit of apple cider vinegar. I poured the wet part into the dry and then mixed everything thoroughly. Also adjusted the consistency by adding a bit more non-dairy milk. And then I cooked my pancakes in a non-stick skillet with a tiny bit of coconut oil for about 3 minutes on each side over medium heat. I first topped my stack off with vegan butter and maple syrup. And once that was destroyed, I then also added some oat sour cream to this, green apple chunks, and vegan sprinkles. I then went on a run to Chickpea because we had rare summer weather that day and I felt pressured by the sun to go outside. But it was an adventure. I saw some giant birds, got attacked by this tiny bird. On my way back on the S-Bahn, 2 stops in, I noticed that I had left my student ticket at home, and so I got out and had to walk the rest of the way. I got super hungry eventually, bought this wellness sandwich from Bakwerk that was not looking so fresh anymore. On to dinner, I chopped up a small yellow onion and sauteed that in some olive oil for about 5 minutes over medium heat. Then I added this pack of minced tofu. It's a bit dry on its own, but just add lots of liquid to it. It'll soak it all up, and then it tastes pretty decent actually. I added some soy sauce, garlic, lots of tomato puree, and veggie broth. Slightly over-seasoned everything with this chickenless salt by Trader Joe's that my friend Emily sent me from the US. I let it simmer for about 7 minutes. That was just enough time for me to cook the glass noodles. They're made out of bean starches and they cook super fast, simply just by pouring hot water over them and letting them sit for about 6-7 minutes. Drained the noodles, added them to the tofu sauce, and that kind of helped balancing out the saltiness, so this ended up being really tasty actually. I don't know if I saw this in a comment somewhere or if my brain just came up with that, but that night I decided to try out canned peaches in peach juice together with cashew butter. Because I love both these things individually. No offense to the commenter or my brain, but this was not a good combo, according to my taste buds, which are of course very subjective. I wanted to be healthy that morning, and so I thought, why not go for a green smoothie made up of green apple, 2 handfuls of baby spinach, about a cup of this frozen pineapple mango orange mix, the leftover canned peaches, and their peach juice. Man, this time my food processor didn't do the best job blending this. Also, this was just so much. It gave me some major 2015 YouTube flashbacks, so I only managed to drink half and put the rest in the fridge. Now onto my actual breakfast. I ended up having some of this chocolate hazelnut pudding. I had really high hopes in this, thinking it might taste like Monte, which it didn't, sadly, but still pretty good. I topped this with the rest of the chocolate muesli granola and a bit of almond butter. Lunch was super yummy. It was a wrap consisting of hummus, oat sour cream, the leftover tofu mix, spinach, and tomatoes. And then I wrapped it up as best as I could. I let it toast in a grilling pan until golden brown for a couple minutes on each side. Artemis and I did some cruising around Tempelhof that day because I recently got myself a waveboard. When I was a young tween, I used to roll the streets on that thing. I had dinner at Artemis's place. She cooked everything. I contributed nothing to this. Her mom got her these supposedly edible flowers recently, so I tried one of those. Wouldn't do that again. She made these loaded salad bowls for us with spinach, vegan feta, tomato, salty turmeric couscous, a nice little tahini dressing, pumpkin seeds, and olives. This was so good. Artie didn't just provide me with dinner, but she essentially also took care of my breakfast the next day. The night before, she handed me this giant loaf. It's a beautiful vegan poppy seed tsureki that she made as part of her YouTube video series, where every single month she puts out a recipe dedicated to a Greek god or goddess and creates a cake or dessert inspired by their personality, their vibe, their aesthetic. Anyway, so I had a couple slices here with some plain soy yogurt, raspberries, and a tiny bit of maple syrup. Also still had to drink half that smoothie. For a quick and sweet snack, I had the remaining chocolate hazelnut pudding. For a late lunch, I made this cozy, very low effort zucchini noodle soup. First, I just cut the zucchini into strips using a vegetable peeler and cooked those in a little bit of olive oil for about 7 minutes over medium heat, and seasoning it with garlic powder and salt. In the meantime, I cooked up some more bean noodles. So again, just by pouring hot water over that, I transferred the noodles and water to a small saucepan to be able to heat up everything together and then mix the soup in there. I then also added the zoodles, the zucchini noodles, seasoned everything with some nutritional yeast, chili flakes, finished everything off with some sesame seeds. This was really good, unlike my mental state that day. And so that evening, I wasn't even in the mood to properly film my dinner, which I'm sorry about, but I took some photos. I first had some dates with peanut butter, and then 2 little wraps filled with hummus, vegan sour cream, and tomatoes and spinach. I started my day off with a bowl of soy yogurt, a tablespoon of this caramel biscuit powder by Vivo Life, some applesauce went in there, and a handful of raspberries as well. So this was breakfast number 1. The main breakfast event was this cozy banana quinoa porridge. So first I cooked up a small portion of quinoa. I know you're supposed to rinse it first to get rid of the bitter flavor that quinoa naturally comes with, but I don't have a strainer that has holes small enough to hold the quinoa, but it's okay. The bitterness doesn't bother me that much. In the meantime, I mashed up 1/2 of a banana. The other half I saved for the topping. I added the banana mash to my saucepan along with some non-dairy milk. I seasoned everything with a pinch of cinnamon and salt and let this all continue to simmer for another 10 to 12 minutes or until the quinoa was soft. What really helped me with getting out of this cloudy mental state was doing a good old classic brain dump. Writing out all my to-dos that overwhelm me, and just also everything that was just bothering me in general. Plus a list of things of what I could do about these things, like what's the next step in this project? How do I communicate my thoughts best to that person? Actually, what helped me even more than the brain dump was watching this video of Phil cutting Dan's hair. Feeling very happy and super motivated again, I put together this fancy tasty salad for myself. First off, I let some soy granules plus vegetable broth powder soak in some boiling hot water for about 10 minutes. That time I spent cutting up some cherry tomatoes and cucumber and creating a dressing out of lemon juice, tahini, maple syrup, mustard, and various spices. I grabbed a tortilla, cut it into quarters, brushed it with a bit of olive oil, sprinkled over some garlic powder and some of the chickenless salt, and let this toast on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper for about 6 to 8 minutes in a preheated oven at 200 degrees Celsius. Yeah, drain the soy granules if there's any water left in the bowl, and then fry it over medium-high in a non-stick skillet for about 6 minutes. This might be my favorite meal from last week. So simple, but so good. I wasn't in the mood to cook anything else that day, and so I treated myself to some Turkish takeout. So chickpea bites, which are these spicy bulgur tomato patties, jalapenos, parsley, a couple of these rice-filled vine leaves, some bread, yum yum yum. This was so good. Got this from Chickpea, by the way. On Sunday, I attempted to bake something I've been meaning to try out for a while now. It always seems so difficult and intimidating in my head. Croissants, or actually, this recipe is more so inspired by the Italian version, cornetti, which I think has a bit less butter and the shape is slightly different, but they did kind of end up looking like croissants. I'm not sure. Whatever these are, they're actually not that difficult to make. They're just very time consuming. Also, when in doubt, put it in the fridge or freezer for a bit. That's just an overall tip to keep in mind when making these. First off, grab a small saucepan and add some non-dairy milk, some vanilla, some non-dairy yogurt, sunflower seed oil, and sugar. Turn the heat to medium-high, give this a good mix. You don't want this to boil, just want it to be slightly warm, and then take it off the heat. Pour the mix inside a large baking bowl and add the active dry yeast. Just let it sit on top of the mixture for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, measure out and combine the flour and salt in a separate small bowl. Transfer the dry ingredients to the big bowl with the yeast mix. Mix it all up with a spoon first until it's somewhat combined, and then get your hands in there. Knead the dough for a good 8 minutes. It might be a bit sticky in the beginning. What really helps is oiling your hands with a few drops of oil and sprinkling the dough and the surface with a bit of spell flour. Also, as you keep working the dough, it'll just stop with the stickiness eventually and it will become nice and fluffy. Flatten it out with your hands into a rough rectangle, wrap it up in some parchment paper, and now either put this into the fridge for 24 hours or place it somewhere warm for 1 to 2 hours. I put it just next to a sunny window. I had a quick muesli break then, because I got really hungry. Here's a timestamp in case you want to jump straight to the rest of the cornetti recipe. So for my muesli, I'm adding some small cut oats to my bowl. This DM fruit muesli mix that really is just 90% raisins. This super yummy cinnamony granola, a tablespoon or 2 of tsampa powder, which is a roasted barley wheat flour that has a really nice flavor to it, some green apple chunks, and unsweetened soy milk. Alright, now back to the pastries. Grab some cold vegan butter that you've kept in the fridge up until now. We're going to create a full sheet of butter. So on top of a sheet of parchment paper, lay out your butter pieces. You can leave the chunks a bit bigger than what I did here, since we're going to merge all of them anyway. Then fold the sheet over like so, and using a rolling pin, first press down the butter to loosen it up a bit, and then quickly roll it into a large rectangle that should be about 3 to 5 millimeters thick. Now place it into the freezer for about half an hour. Roll out the dough after it's done rising. Mine was about 21 times 42 centimeters. Next up, you're going to fold in the butter layer that you've just created. I actually broke mine in half because I felt like that'd be easier to work with. Fold this piece over and then add the remaining butter sheet on top of that and fold the top piece over that. Roll it out a bit, fold again. Roll it out, fold again. I did 3 folds total, I think, either folding the dough in half or into thirds. The important thing is that you work quickly to keep the butter from melting. Wrap this up again and put this into the fridge for another half hour to really chill down and solidify the butter. If you want yours to have a chocolate filling, then cut up some chocolate chunks now. And then it's time to assemble the pastries. Take the dough out of the fridge and cut it in half. Place one half back into the fridge because we're gonna do this in 2 batches. On a lightly floured surface or large cutting board, roll each half out until it's about 24 times 20 centimeters in size. Now cut out the triangles. Each one should be about 8 centimeters wide, so measure that out first. Cut out the triangles with a sharp knife. If at any point the dough is getting hard to work with because you feel the butter is melting, then put it back into the freezer or fridge for a while. If you want, place a piece of chocolate towards the top half, slightly pull the 2 top corners backwards, and then roll it up. Place them on a prepared baking sheet lined with parchment paper. It's probably best to even have that baking sheet sitting in your fridge, and after you roll each one, you put that into the fridge. Now, once you've rolled all of them, let them rest in the fridge one last time for another 20 minutes while you preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius. Last but not least, brush them with some soy cream or soy milk. And if you want, you can sprinkle them with a bit of sugar before baking them until golden brown for 18 to 22 minutes. Serve immediately. I had 2 of these and then gave the rest to neighbors and friends to prevent me from eating all of these in one sitting. They're so good. I've never really appreciated the time and effort that goes into making croissants. Like when you just buy one at a bakery. It's crazy, and they do this every day. My lunch was just the leftover takeout from the night before, with some extra carrot sticks and lettuce. Dinner was just a few of these small sweet potatoes that I cut into chunks, coated in a bit of olive oil, and then roasted in the oven for about 25 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius. While that was happening, I made a quick, spicy red pepper sauce. So I mixed together some gochujang, cornstarch water mix, rice vinegar, soy sauce, bit of maple syrup. I brought this up to a quick simmer while stirring frequently, adjusting everything with some water until I was happy with the consistency. And then I poured this over the roasted sweet potatoes. Serve that with some black beans and an absolutely perfect avocado half. Some of the lamb's lettuce and sesame seeds. Had a tiny bit more beans and avocado off screen. And that was that. I had such a nice, cozy evening watching The Office for the first time. I know, shame on me. I've seen some of the German version and most of Parks and Rec, but The Office, I don't think I'd ever had access to. Like, I've never seen it be made available for streaming on the German Netflix, but thanks to the VPN I'm using right now, I can just change my virtual location to Canada, and then I'm good to go. And that brings me to the sponsor of this video, NordVPN. Everyone should use a VPN nowadays. It encrypts and protects your data so you can have a super relaxed, safe, and anonymous internet experience. For example, you'll be able to access your online bank accounts with public Wi-Fi even, safely without having to worry. Plus, NordVPN is super easy to use. Just one push of a button, and I'm in Australia. Like with me in The Office, it allows you to unlock movies and TV shows you wouldn't otherwise be able to watch. For instance, oh my god, The Good Place. The Good Place. On German Netflix, you don't have access to this show, and that is a crime, because it is hands down one of the best, most brilliant pieces of entertainment ever created. But look, Australia has it. Isn't that so good? Go to nordvpn.com/MinaRome or use code MinaRome to get a 2-year plan with a huge discount, plus an additional month for free. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can just try it out. Link will be down below. Thank you so much for being here, watching this. I hope you guys had fun and got some good food inspiration from this. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Feeling right out of line. Gotta hit my boy Ricky for the way up the time. Proud of driven, but it's nothing but the climb and grind. Take the time, tripping over space and time. My mind the line, speaking like a god of time. My modest mind, speaking from the heart of kind of